Sometimes people think that all of the footage from World War II has been seen. We often see the same shots, the same sequences, again and again. But if you know where to look, new stories come to light every day. Just recently, I was on Facebook and found a post from a gentleman named Ed in a history group that I frequent. The title was, "Dad Brought Back This 16mm Film from World War II," and it immediately caught my attention. Inside this post was some extremely rare footage, documenting the air war in brutal detail as I've never seen before. There were bombers on fire, aircraft going down all around, and German fighters executing lethal attacks in great detail, all from the point of view of one of the ball turret gunners, watching his friends be torn apart while he shot the events from his camera. After seeing these incredible shots, I decided that we should dive in and see what is actually happening in these newly surfaced clips and try to understand the carnage happening right before our eyes. Perhaps we could even try to identify some of the pilots, crews, or victims based on in-depth archive digging. With some thorough research, can we determine what exactly is going on here? Who are we watching in this reel? And what were the fates of the men captured in this rare footage? The clips here in this 5-minute reel start with some very informative info slides. They state specifically that this footage is of the 91st Bomb Group and shot by a ball turret gunner, named Staff Sergeant Rudolf Filipowski, pictured here in this 1944 newspaper. And this next info slide was the one that really hooked me. The mission that this footage was from is November 2nd of 1944, a raid to Merseburg, Germany. This was the home of the Leuna fuel plant and one of the most sensitive targets in the Reich. I actually made a video about this target a few months back and how this single location may have been the most heavily fortified target in Germany, filled with hundreds of 88mm flak positions, decoy targets, and loads of fighter protection nearby. This was great news for our research because in the book Merseburg, Blood, Flak, and Oil by Ray Bowden, we have some fantastic breakdowns of these missions that might provide us with a little more info on what's happening here. Upon reading, this raid to Merseburg on November 2nd was actually even more brutal than the footage might illustrate. This mission was their single greatest loss of the entire war, as the group launched 37 aircraft, but only 24 would return. 1/3 of their total force, 13 planes, were lost in this mission that would come to be known as the Massacre at Merseburg. The dominoes that would lead to this disaster would start early on. The 91st was assigned Tail End Charlie for the entire raiding force of over 600 heavy bombers. They would be the final formation in the wing and the last over the target, leaving them more exposed to the enemy. Amplifying this rough predicament, however, was a major navigational blunder that took place en route to the target. A combination of a few key factors set up the 91st for a slaughter. First, heavy wind was documented blowing the force slightly off course. Secondly, multiple compasses in the lead bomber, as well as their navigational radar, went out. Third, the weather was worse than predicted, leading to heavy cloud cover in the area of the target. This can be seen from both the official 91st Bomb Group report that I was able to locate, as well as the footage we have here. These thick clouds made it impossible for the group to navigate after their equipment stopped working. Because of these factors, the 91st found themselves well north of Merseburg, releasing their bombs in an open field near Halle instead of anywhere close to their target. In addition, they had now fallen behind the rest of the wing, trailing the group in front of them by a substantial amount, leaving them without the protection of the rest of the bomber force. The planned route for this mission involved a right turn to the south after the target. This would take them away from cities like Berlin and keeping them far out of range of intense flak and fighters that filled this deep area of the fatherland. But they would stray quite a bit from this prescribed route. Furthermore, at this time, they were also without their little friends. Their assigned fighter escort, which had been up with them until the IP, had also peeled away. They were sent to assist with other engagements, and the 91st was supposed to receive a new escort of P-38s after hitting the target and turning for home. But unfortunately, what would happen next would ensure that that never happened, and that they would instead be in a fight for survival. Now, survival for these crews would mean dodging 20mm cannon shells fired from German fighters. And luckily, most of us will never find ourselves in that situation. But if you do want to learn about how mankind has survived for the past 10,000 years, this video's sponsor, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization from Hungry Minds, can teach you all about that. If you've ever wondered how we as humans got to where we are now, technology, medicine, governments, then the book has everything you could ever want to know. How can humans determine which plants are safe to eat? How is penicillin made? How to start a fire, craft leather, or farm for oysters? And all sorts of other lessons that mankind has learned over our existence. I even hear that they're adding a section on how to survive attacks from Focke-Wulf 190s. Okay, I made that part up. But this book is the perfect gift for curious minds, people who love to learn, or just enjoy studying about the trials and tribulations of the men who came before us. I love it because books like this inspire deeper thinking and understanding of the world around us. But don't just listen to me. The book raised more than $2.3 million on Kickstarter to help bring this project to life. And there's even a hidden quest inside the book, taking you deeper down the rabbit hole every time you open it. Thousands have already gotten their copy, and now you can too. Check out the book from Hungry Minds and use code TJ10 for 10% off, or scan my QR code here. Get it for yourself or for the intellectual in your life. Thanks again to Hungry Minds, and now back to the fight for survival in November of 1944. At about 12:20 in the afternoon, the bombers finally began their run and released their payloads. The flak was intense and accurate, bringing down one or two of their bombers. This is where the footage begins, with the forts releasing bombs. Here, from this footage, we can already acquire some critical information and context on where we are in the formation. After analyzing this footage, we can see the tail number on this bomber ends in 8324. After digging through the records and crew lists, I have identified this ship as B-17 44-8324, Blood and Guts, flown by Lieutenant Holmes, confirmed by the markings on the fuselage, the R identifier, which is seen in photos and in this reel. Based on these same reports, we also know that Sergeant Filipowski, the cameraman for this footage in his bald turret, was in B-17 43-38035, or also known as Anxious Angel, flown by Lieutenant Gibson. Both of these aircraft are listed as being on the left side of the flight, on the lower area of the formation. This information allows us to place ourselves in the correct location in the formation, giving us a better chance of identifying exactly what aircraft and events we are watching. For example, based on these formation charts, we can tell that one of the B-17s here is actually one of the most notable in history, just behind them, barely out of frame in the footage. B-17 42-31909. The famous 909. And yes, this is the same plane that the infamous aircraft which crashed in Connecticut in 2019 was painted to replicate. Now that we know exactly where we are as the cameraman in this footage, let's analyze what happens next. After bombing what they believe to be the target of Merseburg, or more accurately, some random farmland around Halle, Germany, the 91st, for a reason still unknown to this day, turned left and began a course home that took them over more heavily defended regions of the Reich. Part of this was certainly because they were unaware that they had already drifted more than 15 miles north. But the decision would still be questionable either way. This choice became the subject of much debate among the 91st Bomb Group veterans, and when the results are analyzed, we can certainly see why it was a heated topic. Shortly after this decision to turn left and head northwest, the 91st found themselves alone, far from the rest of their bomber stream, and even farther from their rendezvous location with their fighter escort. They were, however, in the perfect location to be intercepted by German fighters, which would not miss their opportunity. Two primary intercepting Luftwaffe units took to the air in this area on November 2nd of 1944. These would be JG-3 and JG-4, both of which were Focke-Wulf 190 units, which was the perfect weapon to attack isolated and unescorted bombers, like the poor men of the 91st. Sources and historians debate which particular unit attacked the 91st that day, and which was terrorizing the 457th a few miles away. But what is certain is that one of them came from the 6 o'clock position and began to feast on the American bombers. At approximately 12:45, German fighters stormed in. As we watch the absolute carnage unfold in this footage, we can see the 190s swarm the Lonesome Formation. Hits are tallied across multiple bombers, and one of the rarest sightings possible in World War II footage takes place. Two different B-17s on fire in the same sequence. I've spent many hours sifting through archive footage and have never seen anything like this. Fighters bringing down one heavy bomber was hard enough, but setting two on fire at once in the same formation, that tells you just how vicious this attack was. And using the commentary from Merseburg, Blood, Flak, and Oil, we can try to identify who we might be watching in this footage. Now, perfect ID is never guaranteed, but based on my detailed analysis here, we can certainly make educated guesses. Based on the after-action reports, the author details each of the losses from this mission. The following is his description of Aircraft 42-38083, also known as Man of War 2. Cannon shells from Focke-Wulf 190s ripped through the right wing and empennage, sending a shower of twisted fragments from the fort. Check. We can see the right side of the fortress getting hit and catching fire. Then, two different sources in its missing aircrew report list Man of War 2 as turning over on its side. Again, in the footage, we can see this particular fortress roll fiercely on its side before the clip ends. Check once again. Finally, we can verify the position of Man of War 2 in the formation, and it was indeed on the same side of the combat box as Sergeant Filipowski and Anxious Angel, our cameraman, putting it at the correct location in the footage. Check mark number 3. Just like that, with a very high degree of certainty, I think we can, for the first time, identify this poor bomber in the newly surfaced footage as B-17 42-38083, Man of War 2. We now know it was able to briefly right itself after the footage cuts out, but then would break apart, where 4 men in the front of the plane miraculously bailed out and survived, but the other 5 perished, caught in the plane when it disintegrated. This also helps us place a better frame of reference on the second B-17 on fire in this footage, which must be nearby in the formation. Notably, in this fortress, however, we can see that the fire is on the left wing. So let's see if we can find a description that matches that. According to my theory, this is B-17 43-38202. Also known as Miss Slipstream. Miss Slipstream appears to have had a position change somewhere before the target. Here in the formation charts, we can see that she was way over here on the right after assembly, but for some reason moved over to the left side of the combat box over the target, flying right across from 8083, Man of War 2. According to Miss Slipstream's missing aircrew report, we can read one witness state: Aircraft 43-38202 was hit during the attack by 1 or more enemy fighters. At this time, we were under fighter attack, and when I again had time to observe what I believe to have been Miss Slipstream, it had peeled off low and to the right of the formation. I believe that there was a small fire in the left wing. When last observed, the aircraft seemed to be under control. This recollection puts her in the right position in the formation, and with a fire on the correct side of the plane, going down under control, corroborating the footage with the report. Check, check, check. Once again confirming with high probability that we are likely watching Miss Slipstream go down. Moments later, her entire crew would bail out, but her navigator's chute would fail to open, and her pilot would be killed by German civilians on the ground. As the footage continues, we see the German 190s regrouping for another attack, as much of the B-17 formation is now hopelessly broken up. The footage then cuts to a new title card, reading, "Watch coordinated attack from tail by Focke-Wulf 190s. Note hits on the B-17 and smoke trailing from the second enemy fighter as it breaks away." And this might be my favorite clip in the entire reel. Never before have I seen such a coordinated Luftwaffe fighter attack caught on film. These are clearly some of Germany's few remaining elite pilots, and the results here would be devastating for their target, a lone B-17 taking clear damage across the wings from the German cannons. Notably, as we look to identify this bomber, the ball turret cameraman has now shifted his angle in this new clip. We can see that he is now looking towards the right side of the formation. This will undoubtedly be an important clue. The following is another passage from Merseburg Blood, Flak and Oil. John Ondrovic, piloting B-17 44-6293, also known as Sun-Kissed Sue, noted that shortly after the target, we were attacked by enemy fighters, coming in from 6 o'clock in 6-ship waves for the initial attack. Then with the sun at 10 o'clock, we were attacked from 3 to 6 o'clock by pairs of Focke-Wulf 190s. Simultaneously, we were attacked from 7 o'clock. After firing at our tail, the 190s would split S underneath our plane with bellies up. Yet again, I believe this description matches very closely with what we see in this brutal attack footage. Groups of multiple German fighters at once and pairs of Focke-Wulf 190s, which could easily be 4 fighters in this clip, attacked from specifically mentioned 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, as seen in the footage. It does also appear as if the 190s try to start a belly-up maneuver after the attack, which may match as well. But perhaps most notably, look at the location of Sun-Kissed Sue in the formation, flying in a spot that absolutely coordinates with the footage on the far right side of the combat box. Also, further corroborating this theory is the fact that somehow Sun-Kissed Sue survives the mission. Captain Ondrovic would nurse her back home to England, and since we do not see this fortress catch fire or go down, that would match up yet again. I believe that this is enough information to claim yet again with high probability that we are watching a Luftwaffe attack on B-17 Sun-Kissed Sue, who would withstand the onslaught and return home. The rest of the footage carries on, and we can see multiple additional B-17s go down at the hands of German 190s. The 91st would be destined to lose 13 aircraft that day, more than 130 American airmen when accounting for casualties taken on the ships that survived. For the next few minutes, additional fortresses went down from the 91st, and as the battered unit limped back home, the final tally was taken. 1/3 of their group had been shot down, their worst single loss of the war. And most tragically, all they had gained in exchange was the bombing of a field well north of their intended target. Tragically for the Luftwaffe, though, their victories would come at a high price. Shortly after this engagement with the 91st Bomb Group, much of JG-3 and JG-4 would run into the American escorting fighters that were still patrolling the area. They would take high losses in aerial combat, nearly at the same rate or higher as that of the 91st. Unlike the 91st, their numbers would never recover, as they could not fill cockpits so quickly. But still, for the men on board of the fortresses, their losses would take a heavy toll, and this day would go down as the massacre at Merseburg. The next time someone says all the footage has been shown, or that there is little left to learn about history, remember, from something as simple as a Facebook post, we can take newly surfaced footage more than 80 years old and successfully identify new stories and events that were previously untold. It just goes to show you that there are always new lessons to be learned, and that with some quality research and good archive digging, we can continue to uncover history. Comment below if you think my IDs based on the information I presented seem accurate after what you saw in the footage, or feel free to argue with me and we'll see what we can uncover. If you enjoyed this video, please consider joining my Patreon here and get your name on the supporter wall behind me. Or go check out my new film, 10 Good Men, coming to select theaters and streaming everywhere Veterans Day 2026. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.